We're out here in the majestic Victoria Falls. I'm sitting here with the future of the profession and of leadership in Zimbabwe, Tino and Emmanuel. And before we get into the conversation, I just want to give a shout out to Pilsner for keeping me refreshed, hydrated, and chirpy. Thank you so much, and cheers to everyone in the audience also having a tipple. Right, so we're out here for the ICAZ Winter School, and whenever I attend these sort of conferences and gatherings, the question percolates in my mind that about the value proposition of these sort of things. Do you actually come away richer as a professional for spending a couple of days in a conference like this, or it's just really a jolly that you can justify, that a lot of executives can justify, flying out to a wonderful resort town and spending a bunch of time listening to some panels and presentations, and then you're off to the activities and fun. What has your experience been? Do you you've sitting through the panel discussions and the presentations, are you richer? And to the extent that you believe you're richer, what have you been your takeaway so far?
Okay, thanks Rufaro. So maybe just to introduce myself, you had already mentioned that I'm Emmanuel Spanda, and I would like to apologize. My voice is a bit hazy.
I see you're having a concoction with ginger and lemon. Did you add a shot of brandy?
No.
I find that's usually quite helpful.
So no brandy. I'm not a fan of those, unfortunately. However, shout out obviously to Colton Pilsner there.
Okay.
So I'm a cheese guy.
You're a teetotaler. Oh my gosh.
And mocktails. So that's my area of interest. So
okay.
Unfortunately, I don't partake on alcohol. So maybe what I want to say is, you see the way the profession is structured itself.
Yep.
It tries to bring a complete professional in terms of the way they are developed, and the purpose of this winter school is to try to remind us or rejuvenate the past experiences. So you will notice that when you start, there are a lot of things that you don't know, there's a lot of things that you don't understand, and there are a lot of workings that you don't understand. But through the hours that you put in, which for some who are coming from A level, it's 5 years, and for those coming from university, it's 3 years of training.
Yep.
And in that training, you need to gain practical experience in
sure.
training. Then after the practical experience, there is also the academics that balances up the practical experience that you gain as you are going through the training process. After which you write your exams, and if you are successful and pass with the last exam which you write, you qualify. So the purpose of these winter schools, from my understanding, is to bring that experience back. However, now in a setup of reminding you why you started this journey in the first place.
Okay.
So I've never met a CA, or at least in this winter school or in the previous winter schools or at work, a CA who says, I just did this for the purpose of just doing it, without a purpose of bringing value and
so absolutely, the aspiration is to make you richer as a professional, right?
Yes.
To actually be accretive in terms of your technical expertise and your leadership expertise.
Yes.
That's the aspiration,
Yes.
right? But a lot of conferences, sometimes what happens is the aspiration and the reality on the ground, there's a gap. So, and that's really the question that I'm posing.
Yeah.
From your experience over the last couple of days, has the winter school lived up to its aspiration?
Okay, so I'll say something a bit different from him.
Yeah,
I'm actually
sure.
a baby CA. I recently qualified.
Congratulations.
It's actually my first time here.
Okay.
So the nature of the journey to becoming a CA, it's hard. Exams are difficult. You have to manage work, home, school sometimes. So I think, in a way, in as much as we are here to enrich ourselves, in as much as we are here to continuously improve ourselves, it's one of those things that you think, finally, I'm done with school. I can actually now go to winter school.
Yeah.
So without anyone questioning me. So I think in a way it's a bit of both worlds. People sometimes come here to have fun.
To let their hair down.
Yes, and have a couple of drinks. And I think from my perspective, maybe because it's my first time, I've really enjoyed how we struggled this year with the introduction of the new currency. It was hell.
Struggle, yeah, that's putting it mildly.
It was hell. So I really enjoyed today's panel. They were trying to unpack some things that were not clear. I know,
Around the currency, for sure.
yes. So I really think they did a good job. We're not there yet.
No, we're far from there.
Yes,
I want
but
to add
I
to,
think I think that's the key takeaway from my point of view.
so I want to add to what Tino has said. In terms of accountants, I'm sure you have seen the conversations on social media, especially on X,
Yes.
where we are known for being cost cutters and price
Yes,
increases.
bean
which I
counters
don't-
are
we
not the
probably
most fun
we are
people in the
probably
world.
going to I'm very passionate about that. We're probably going to talk about that, but maybe separately.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is we are very cost conscious. It's true, but obviously that's not what drives a business.
Yes, otherwise you wouldn't.
So
You'd have
the reason
done
why
this.
we are here is because someone sat down and they looked at the cost and they saw that if we invest in this activity, there is value that we are going to get from the individual. Like she said, CAs are very tied up people at work. We work long hours. And with this introduction of the new currency, the hyperinflation, the audits, the half-year audits, the quarterly publishing for those who are listed, the pressure is just too much. So you need
Okay.
to take a step back. What does the winter school do? It brings that sanity. You come here, you meet fellow professionals from different industries, from different sectors, and you discuss those ideas. You know, you share insights and you help each other how to handle things. So I don't think it's only a matter of just meeting in the conference room and hearing the speakers talk, but also getting insights. For example, there are some guys who have been out of the country for a long time. Some don't manage to come to winter schools every year. Some of them do. They are here. People from different industries outside the country, people in the audit firms outside in other continents, in Europe, in the islands, etc. So I think the winter school brings that perspective, you know, because sometimes you can get swamped in work and you thinking you're being productive, you become less productive. But if you meet other professionals, share insights, it opens you up. And when you go back to work, you're rejuvenated. So I think there is value for money there, in my opinion. So I think it's...
Okay, cool.
working.
So,
Yeah.
so Tino brought up the currency, and you know, it just brings up this pet peeve that I have with your profession around numbers. Because in my other life, I'm an analyst, and I look at the financial statements of listed companies. And one of my greatest frustrations, frankly, is that I look at these numbers, these hyperinflation figures, and you know, I can't make any sense of them. They, you know, I call them gibberish. I remember, you know,
That's too harsh.
well,
That's too true.
they're gibberish. You know, I remember going to an analyst briefing for one of the big listed companies, and you know, the finance director had his slides with the numbers, and then he got to, you know, the inflation adjusted financials, and remarkably, he actually said that he doesn't understand those numbers.
Yeah,
Right?
it's true.
So
Yeah.
right, and you know, what's amazing is that companies actually pay more to have these hyperinflation numbers prepared and reviewed and signed off by the auditors. So
Yeah.
so we're actually spending money
For that.
to generate this gibberish,
Yeah.
right? And you know, as an analyst, I can't make heads or tails of it. I can't imagine that a layman can make any sense of it. You know, some companies are actually quite thoughtful and pragmatic, and they will release, in addition to the hyperinflation, inflation-adjusted numbers, they'll release supplementary numbers. You know, talking to in US dollars, you know, the nature of the transactions that they've done, and you know how their business is doing, and for those companies that actually take that path, those are the numbers that we in the analyst community actually work with to try and wrap our brains around the value of the business and what. But a lot of companies don't publish any supplementary numbers.
Yeah.
So you guys are the youngsters, you're the future of the profession. You know, how are you allowing us to just wade in this gibberish without supplementary numbers that are useful?
Okay. Maybe
Right. So,
go ahead. Yeah.
to those who don't understand, maybe is a bit of background to the profession. Being a charter holder, or in this case, a chartered accountant, you just don't wake up one day and decide you want to present gibberish numbers, or you just want to present numbers that are meaningless. I know at some point, even like you said, when we look at them at ourselves, indeed, it's difficult to make decisions with such numbers. But remember, we are governed by standards
I agree.
that are not made by you and me. In as much as I'm the future of the profession, I'm governed by a standard. Would you say, maybe let's talk about last year, do you think we were in a hyperinflationary environment in Zimbabwe?
I don't think we were. I know we were.
No, we were. Okay, so from that point of view, or from that perspective only, the moment we say we are in a hyperinflationary environment,
You have to produce it.
we have to
Inflation-adjusted numbers, yeah.
inflation-adjusted numbers. So I think the most important thing is now for a company to then say, okay, we are in a hyperinflationary environment. We are required by the standards to do this and this and this. And we've presented these numbers, but we see that the decision-making wise, they are not very helpful. So can we then present supplementary numbers like you're saying? And I think the standards allow that. You are allowed to say, for example, if you are an entity which trades mostly in foreign currency, you are allowed, because that's your functional currency. That's the currency that you use every day. So the standard allows that.
Yes.
So the onus is now on the entity to then say, yes, we are required by the standard to do this, but we're also allowed to present maybe US dollar numbers that are more meaningful.
Yeah,
so I think
absolutely.
sometimes it's just, I don't know if it's ignorance or it's just people trying to follow rules without exploring more. Standards that allow you to present
So look, I think we're on the same page there, but the nature of my gripe is the following. What I'm saying is, yes, you operate in a regulatory framework, and so you have to produce inflation-adjusted numbers in a market where it's clear that there's hyperinflation, right?
Yeah.
But the whole point of financial statements is to inform users. Right?
Yeah.
And so in an environment where, yes, the rules say produce inflation-adjusted numbers, but those numbers are not useful, what I would have expected the profession to do at ICAZ level, at PAB level, to say, okay, fine, you know what, this is what the standards say, but we need to be pragmatic. We want the users of financial statements to actually be able to get meaningful insights, right? So for our jurisdiction, in addition to inflation-adjusted numbers, you must publish the supplementary information that will empower users to have a better understanding of what happened. And all of these boards and management teams are not making decisions using inflation-adjusted numbers, right? They've got other information at their disposal that they use to make decisions to operate their businesses, right? So why do they have the privilege of having this quality information that they use every day to make decisions, and us, the users, and
don't have access to it.
the shareholders, right, the people who actually own the businesses,
We don't have access to
we're
it.
being given, we're being treated like, we're being given gibberish, right? And that's my gripe, to say, look, why, what's good for the goose?
It's good for the gun.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rufaro, so what I want to mention there is, I think she mentioned the issue of regulation. What I want to admit, and I will admit this in a public platform, there is a gap in IS 29. And the IS 29 is the hyperinflationary standard, the one that deals with accounting for hyperinflationary economies. So you see the context, it was reactionary because of the occurrences that were happening in Argentina mostly, and then the other parts of South America. Then obviously Zimbabwe was also part then of the case study afterwards in 2008 and everything else. So then obviously the regulation will say, but things change a lot, and the factors that drive inflation or the underlying factors are different. So in other countries, it will be driven by something that is probably non-currency related. In other countries, currency related. In other countries, whatever, it could be sanctions or whatever. So I think the standard could not accommodate all circumstances. And if you read the IFRS, when they're introducing themselves, they actually say this. They say we are cognizant that as we are not prescriptive in some instances because we understand that there are different circumstances in countries. But maybe what I wanted to say is PAP actually published a paper, I don't remember if it was in 2020 or 2021, where they were actually saying users, in addition to the information that they are publishing, they can include additional information that is relevant to users. And they said at a minimum, they can disclose their USD, pure USD transactions.
Yes.
And they can also put their pure ZW transactions. That will, at that time it was the ZW currency. So it will give context to the users. So I think, and they've actually raised, I think through their comments that they made in the publication, that some users are not complying with those requirements. So I don't think corporates are trying to hide information from their users, and I think there's been effort to get.
I think
that.
some are, but I'll accommodate your
I
view.
know it's a process. It's not an easy one. It's a process because how we then see it is we're now looking at the direction towards which we are going. Are we then moving to a USD functional currency, or because of the introduction of the ZIC, we are going still to be in the local currency? And you will notice, and this has been said even by the Deputy Minister himself and in different platforms by the governor, that we are probably 85%, 90% USD transactions. So using IS 21, which is an accounting standard, it actually says most companies are now USD functional currency. And those migrations have happened. Most we saw them when companies moved to the VFX to list there. And those even who are listed in the ZSE, they are now preparing their financials in that. So the process is not easy because it requires engagements at various levels, because it doesn't help for you to publish information that suits you as a corporate, but you have not engaged the regulator, you have not engaged the government to understand each other and to reach a position. So I think why it has been taking so long, because someone will ask, why didn't you at some point say prepare in USD? You don't just wake up and prepare numbers in USD. You need a benchmark, and there is a standard that governs that to determine this is USD functional currency or this is USD presentation currency. And to consider that there are issues of exchange rate. Which exchange rate should we use?
Exactly.
You know, it's a very, very complex issue.
Yeah, from a practical point of view.
As an economist, you know this.
Very difficult.
I don't
We
identify as an economist.
We will admit that from a practical point of view.
As someone who is an analyst,
That's Tinashe.
appreciation.
I'm an analyst.
We
That
will,
analysis,
like
you have this
Emmanuel said,
appreciation.
we will admit from a practical point of view, it's very
So
difficult.
you will see
Because
that
you guys,
yeah.
I suspect very much that in your day jobs, when you're working with numbers and you're helping the leadership of the businesses that you're involved with make decisions, you're not working with inflation-adjusted numbers.
Definitely agreed.
Definitely agreed.
Yeah, and we have said, you see, even in the analyst briefings that are done by most companies, they try to give that context. But there needs to be engagements, like I said. You can, if you go out there and publish your USD numbers that have been prepared using certain principles that don't comply with IFRS, the auditors will come and say, look, external auditors, look guys, we agree and understand where you are coming from. But according to our standards, which are the ICAZ, the auditing standards, we are required to audit using the IFRS, which specify that this is how you should do it, and using the companies and other business entities, which says the IFRS are the binding standards in Zimbabwe. So the conversations become wild. Just to give you maybe another illustration, right now there is an issue. When you are migrating to USD, functional currency, for balances in the balance sheet, you are supposed to take your prior 31 December numbers if your financial year ends 31 December. hyperinflated, you convert them using the exchange
The
rate.
exchange rate.
I am
Yes.
telling you, you will see losses in the people's balances. But that's what IFRS requires. And now you try to say to people, okay, guys, for comparative numbers, this won't work.
This won't
Can't
work,
we use
yeah.
alternative forms? And
But
the conversation
maybe
is
to
not so
interject you a bit,
yeah.
as a profession, it's a point. I think it's a point of learning.
Yeah.
Yes, I think sometimes we just have to admit when things are not okay.
Things are not working. Yeah.
Yes.
So look, as a country, we've struggled with this currency issue. Hyperinflation is certainly an indictment on our capacity to manage our economy. And you guys are the future. So tell us, what's the solution? How do we fix this? How do we not have hyperinflation and this very substantial devaluation of our currency and all these issues that our neighbors don't seem to have? You guys have obviously applied your mind to our currency crisis. What would you do if you were running the central bank, or if you were running the treasury? What would you do differently? How would you rebuild or engender faith and confidence in a local currency? Or do you guys even believe in a local currency? Should we just give up that project of having our own currency and say, you know what, guys, this is too hard, right? Let's just work with dollars, okay? Our lives, everybody's lives will be easier. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'd like to think maybe the major problem that we are having, maybe as a country, is we're not honest with ourselves. We don't want to fix the real problems. And once we are able to do that,
So what is the real problem, the elephant in the room that we're not being honest about? What is the real problem?
okay, I think it's good for a country to have its own currency. We can't use a foreign currency forever, but there's also that other problem where they say once you move to a foreign currency, it's then hard to then come
go back, yeah?
Yes, just like that. So I think maybe we're trying to do that quickly. Without actually thinking, okay, guys, what made us go to the US dollar in the first place? And once we address that, then I think we will be able to then say, should we continue with the US dollar? Or should we go back to our own currency? How are we going to do it? Rather than just saying, okay, we were using the US dollar at this moment. From this moment on, it's now ZWL. I think once we manage to address that issue, we'll be able to move forward.
Yeah. So,
But it is good for us to have our own currency.
yeah, I agree. I agree with what Tino is saying. We do need a local currency. It's for various reasons, obviously, because you want to control the flow of your cash flows. Because right now, as it stands, we're at the mercy of some other country, and I think the president has constantly emphasized this.
I'm going to be a devil's advocate, and I'm going to push back, and I'm going to say, we had a government of national unity between 2009 and 2013. We had US dollars. We were not America's best friend. They didn't like Mugabe, right? But
things were okay.
Things worked,
I
right?
agree. Yeah.
So I'm going to push back and say maybe that our lives will be simpler and easier if we just gave up on this project of a local currency and dollarize.
Okay, no, I get you, Rufaro. So where I'm coming from, in my opinion, I don't think the issue is currency. And this has been reiterated by various people. In my opinion, the issue is policy consistency. So we need, if I were to have an opportunity to sit with the minister or deputy minister or the governor or deputy governor, I would say there needs to be convergence of views between the political leg and the treasury, or the purse leg, as I would call it, treasury and the central bank, to align so that the rhetoric that is being constantly fed out there to the masses and the citizens is consistent, because the different echoings that are coming through cause confusion sometimes. So maybe what I would say is we need to build confidence in the citizenry. There is no confidence. So I do not think the local currency is not working because it's a bad currency. But I think the fundamentals, which the beginning is confidence, is not there. So maybe an illustration I have said is, so I think when it was being introduced, the governor mentioned that there will be an audit that would be undertaken at the end of
And you guys must have,
So, no.
in your boardrooms, you were like, yes,
what I said is, look, we are trying to win the confidence of people. Shouldn't we do that audit at the beginning? Shouldn't auditors come
every week?
No, when the curtains was being introduced, 5 April 2024.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the auditors come?
Yes.
And say we have verified. Yes, the president verified them, and we are happy. We trust the president.
We saw a bunch of gold bars in the cabinet.
But someone independent through the audit process, I feel was supposed to come and say, guys, look, issue a report. That was going to be the startup report. Then going forward, the reports follow. My opinion is it was going to build more confidence. But I think generally with how the central bank has handled it, or the governor, to his credit, I think there's been general stability. I don't want to delve much into the methods that have been used to ensure. But
so the underlying message to the governor is the auditors want to come and look at your books and sign off on what you're telling us. Can you give them work?
Not really. That is not it. So I think the idea is let's build confidence in the citizenry. I think once we win the hearts of the people and they understand that this is our project, it's not the government's project.
Now you're sounding like a politician.
No, not really. It's our project. This is for national interest and for our benefit as a country and for future generations.
Yeah.
I think once people buy into that idea, we'll be sorted.
Yes.
That's
and I think
view.
it has been a topical issue at this winter school, if you've been following the
Yes, yeah, sure.
Yes, so build confidence in there.
Okay, all right.
Zimbabwean dollar used to work.
The producer is jumping up and down and is demanding that I wind up. So I'm going to give you, Tino, the last word. What would you like to leave with our audience as we wrap up?
All right. So as a word of encouragement, maybe, I think our profession generally was male-dominated. There was a male-dominated profession. Now I'm delving into gender.
Gender issues. Are you woke?
We can't end the program with that. So I didn't share.
No, that's perfectly
journey.
okay. Yeah.
I didn't share my journey. I was planning on sharing my journey.
No, you're feel free.
I'll just put it in short.
Yeah.
I trained later on. I worked for a bit before training.
Did you do top or you
I did
tip?
top.
Okay, so
top.
For the purposes of the audience, top is training outside of professional practice.
So I'm not an auditor. I was
Yeah.
an internal auditor at some time, but I'm not an auditor. I'm an accountant in business, if you'd like to say it that way.
Yeah.
So I trained late. I started working. Then I decided, I've always wanted to be a chartered accountant. Maybe now is the right time.
Fantastic.
Then I didn't struggle with CTA. I didn't struggle with the early exams, and I thought I was okay, only to get the shock of my life when I wrote the qualifying exam, APC, the final exam. And I think the reason was because I just got married. I had a child. I was getting
Life was happening.
It was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So maybe just to encourage ladies out there, it's possible.
You can do it.
Yes, you can do it. I failed my APC the first time around, and second time around I actually made top 10. So
fantastic.
it is possible, and we can change the future. We can change the profession. So they should not give up. I think that those are my parting words.
Yeah, and I think that on that very upbeat, optimistic, encouraging note, I'll say to my audience, cheers. In the majestic Victoria Falls, and I'm about to have a conversation with Jackie and Shuai, at the ICAZ Winter School. And I am being looked after by Pilsner, who's keeping me very hydrated, refreshed, and chirpy. I see the ladies are drinking pink drinks. What is this? It looks very colorful and interesting.
This is a mojito, so it's very refreshing. The cucumber, the mint, it just keeps you alive. So I'm having a mojito. That's my poison of choice today.
And you, Shuai?
This is called the African Sun Special.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's in it, but it's very sweet. I love sweet, so yeah. That's
Okay,
my
that's
poison of
fantastic.
choice.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is actually, I think, all of today, the guests that I've had have been teetotaling. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by fellow imbibers.
Yeah.
So we're out here at the winter school, and one of the questions I always ask when we're out at a gathering like this, is these corporate conferences, where people fly out to a sunny resort. Typically on the corporate dime, and for a winter school or conference, and you're supposed to. The aspiration is that when you go home, you're richer. You've picked up a bunch of things. You've learned a bunch of things. In this particular instance, it's actually important in terms of your continuing professional education. But I always have this question I'm going to be a devil's advocate here and say that these things, for the most part, tend to be talk shows and holidays. But what's your experience? You've been, over the last couple of days, you've sat through the panels and presentations. Do you guys feel richer? What are the things that you've learned that you think are interesting and striking that you can speak to?
So I think definitely these conferences, I think, are a mixture of both. It is the vacation aspect and the learning aspect. So for me, in terms of learning, I really learned a lot from the panel discussion, and I felt like it was good engagement with the Deputy Minister of Finance, right?
Yeah.
He came and he told us, guys, we are where you are as a country, right? And then
Absolutely.
he did take us through the things that he is doing or his office is doing to try and remedy the situation that we're in. I think it's easy being in the private sector to just sit back, point fingers and say, you're doing this, you're doing that. But he actually implored us to engage and say, what are your solutions? What do you think? Can you bring something to the table? And whether that's taken into consideration, whether they use that is a different conversation. But I think that first step to say, tell us what you think and how we can remedy the situation. I think that was a very interesting and eye-opening conversation for me.
Yeah, certainly. I think I tend to concur. I think the engagement with government has improved over the last couple of years, from my perspective. And what have been your takeaways so far?
Yeah, I think I concur. That was the highlight for me as well. But also, I think we had international speakers coming through to talk about ESG reporting and all the changes that are happening with the climate. That is directly affecting us because we have to report on it. ZSE requires us from the 1st of January to start implementing that. So that's something I can take away from here to my company and actually implement. And again, I think we had Tapiwa Chizana speak on estates and trust this afternoon. So that's something I can take away personally for my family, for my assets, and plan accordingly. So I think I did gather a lot from this.
So I'm gonna pivot a little bit and take on this ESG discussion. So ESG, for the benefit of our audience, is it's all about climate change and being concerned about being sustainable. And so there's a school of thought that I subscribe to that, in as much as the intention is noble, it's mostly that corporates that are for profit should focus on delivering profit to their shareholders, and that ESG is an unnecessary distraction. What's your take on that?
I guess there are two sides to it, because there are some practices that you can implement that are sustainable for the climate and for the environment that would actually save you, the recycling stuff, reusing your water. For example, I'm using my hotel as an example. Yeah. So that would save you in the long term. It's not just about the environment. You're improving your processes.
Yes.
So it's not, you will still maintain, probably in the first few years, it will be costly to set up all the structures that are needed to implement some of the requirements. But I think long term, it works out for the environment and the company.
So you think that a company can focus on ESG and creating value for its shareholders and being profitable at the same time?
In the long term, yes.
Do you have an opinion on ESG? Do you think, because my view is, look, the regulator should tell us, you know, what the environmental regulations are, you know, what they want from us from a sustainability and governance perspective. And if you're in the corporate world and you're running a business, you have to follow the rules and regulations and the law. But beyond that, it's not your problem. You must focus on the bottom line. You must focus on growing your business.
Okay. So what I think is if businesses are left ungoverned and they just focus solely on profit, it's to the detriment of everybody else. Like, we can't just focus on the bottom line, right? We have to have a referee who steps in to say, guys, okay, as much as we want profit, what is the impact of you making profit on the people in the environment that you're living in?
Yep.
So we hear of many stories of companies that are displacing people just for a profit motive, and they don't have any plan on how they're going to help those people. If left ungoverned, people are going to be stranded. So I feel like as much as we want businesses to focus on profit, I think ESG has to come in there to balance it out.
Well, I'll get into trouble with the producer if we delve any deeper into this rabbit hole, because I'm an ardent free market capitalist, and I think you know the state, the regulator, the government should care about ESG. Corporates should care about their shareholders. And the bottom line, but you know, but for now we'll park that, and we'll pivot a little bit to you know, if we were having this conversation, you know, 50, 60 years ago, chances are, you know, there'll be males sitting where you guys are sitting. The world has changed a whole bunch. I think it's much more friendly to the dreams of aspirations and aspirations of women. What has been your experience as women, you know, in corporate Zimbabwe? Is there still a glass ceiling? Is there still work to be done to make it easier for you guys to thrive? Or, you know, is it a level playing field?
Okay. I wouldn't say it's level yet, but we've come a long way. I could definitely say we've come a long way, even in terms of the number of women CAs in the country. I think that's been increasing over the years. But maybe making reference to some of the corporates that I've interacted with, where they would favor, for example, male CAs for some roles because it's taxing, it requires a lot of hours, you know, and they feel like the women are not able to cope, which I would disagree, because we are just as capable. If given the chance, if given the same opportunity, I don't think we'll be like, oh, I need to run home to my children. When we're at work, we're here to work. We're not here. We're not here as women. We're not here as mothers. We're here as CAs, and that's what we'll do. We're gonna do what we came to do at work. So I don't think that mindset. I think that the shift needs to be with the men, their mindset, because in some corporates, they feel sorry for you. They'll be like, no, there'll be long hours, you can go home. But no, I want to learn. I want to do what I'm here to do, you know. Don't feel sorry for me because I'm a woman. Give me the same opportunity. Give me those, I'll do the long hours because I want to learn. I want to be a part of the decision making. I want to be present. Don't scratch me out because I'm a woman, you know. I think it's the mindset in the corporates that still hasn't changed, in my perspective.
And in your experience?
The glass ceiling definitely exists. I think there are many
Oh,
biases.
there is a glass ceiling?
Yeah, there is. I think you just need to look at maybe representation on boards, for example. Like if I'm just speaking of the company that I work for, it's still a big deal that, okay, we've got one exco member, 1 out of 9, right? People celebrate that and clap, like, oh, look at that woman. The fact that we're still clapping for that woman, right? And she's the only woman who's going to sit on the table is problematic in itself. So I think where I see a glass ceiling, like there's so many biases. And for example, if you're a woman who's married, when it comes to pay structure, they actually consider that, oh, you know, your husband is taking care of you. So Rufaro has a family to feed. So we need to give Rufaro more money. So for me, that's a problem in itself. Why are you considering that I have a spouse and I've got a spouse that supports me, therefore I don't deserve to get paid the same amount of money?
I thought cafeteria was the thing now, where, you know, people just get paid based on you know, their level, and nobody actually looks at your circumstances, whether you've got kids in school that you need to pay for, or a spouse, or so these attitudes and views are still out there in corporate Zimbabwe?
Very much so, yeah.
And just to add, it's not just the men, right? The men who have a bias against women. It's also women. I think
So women who have a bias against women?
yeah. So I think as a woman, like if people want to employ you, they ask you, oh, how old are you? How many kids do you have? They start calculating,
Yeah.
are you going to have more children? If you're going to have more children, that means
more
maternity leave. That means
maternity.
you're going to have to take time off work. That's a disruption to my business operations. So
But that's a reality, isn't it?
it's a reality, but so there is a glass ceiling. Like if I've got an opportunity and I may want to get pregnant 2 years from now,
Yeah.
should that stop me?
No, it
From
shouldn't.
getting
But I
that-
think so. Look, it's a delicate subject and it's quite interesting, and it's something that it's great to be able to explore, right? Because I think first and foremost, one of the things that we need to just accept as base reality is that there are actually differences between
Definitely.
men and women, right? In terms of just from the standpoint of biology, right? So a man is not going to give birth, is not going to need 3 months maternity leave. This is just a fact, right? And if you are running a business that's a startup or that's where the work is really intense, right? Maybe you actually care a lot about a potential 3-month disruption in one of your key members' capacity to come to the table and participate, right? And it's not based out of prejudice. It's just an appreciation of. It's just a pragmatic perspective that actually we're going hard here, and we're not in a position where a key member of our team can take a break for an extended amount of time. That's a legitimate consideration. It's not necessarily misogynistic. It's just, it is what it is. And I think some of, so yes, there are bad actors who are genuinely prejudiced against women, who think that women are less capable or less hardworking and industrious and that sort of thing. And that we should definitely call out and try to get those people to appreciate that, women are just as capable. But there are very practical considerations in terms of, that, and so sometimes when you look at the disparities, right, when you look at boards or the gender of CEOs, it's not that there's a deliberate policy to disenfranchise women, right? It's just being alive to some of these other realities.
I hear what you're saying, but I think with the maternity leave, I think that speaks to your continuity plan and processes that are lacking. Someone taking time off should not bring the company to a halt. You should be able to, what if the CEO falls sick, for example? He could also fall sick and need 3 months off, for example. You should have your plan in place. If this person is not there, do they have someone they have taught how to do what's supposed to be done? I think that there's workaround around that. You can't be like, I can't employ this woman because 3 months, she's going to be off for 3 months. Just put the people in place and I think you'll be fine.
No, I hear you. I think these are the conversations that we need to have, where people should be educated about the alternatives and the kind of planning that they can deploy to work around these issues. But I think that there's a distinction between outright prejudice, that's just sexist and misogynistic, and just people saying, I don't want to have this potential pickle, which is not, and it's not an indictment on your capacity and potential to deliver the goods. It's just somebody just taking that view. So it's an interesting conversation around feminism and DEI in the world today. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. But yeah, I if you look at the numbers, if you look at the Fortune 500, if you look at boards, if you look at a lot of those disparities are not because of outright sexism or misogyny. It's not because there's a literal glass ceiling. It's just because life outcomes. That's where that's how things pan out. That there's a guy who just puts out 80, 100 hours a week for 2 decades. And that guy ends up working as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? And an equally talented and ambitious and industrious woman takes a whole bunch of breaks to raise a family and pursue other interests, and doesn't end up, because it's hyper competitive, right? To be the CEO of like a Fortune 500 company, like everybody wants to be, you know, in the corporate world wants to end up at the apex, right? It's hyper competitive. So it's just, you know, so if you have some segues, you're just less likely to end up there. It's not that
Takes longer, maybe.
Okay. So I think my view about diversity and inclusion, and the specific example that you gave about women having to take time off, I think at the beginning of this conversation you did say, let's be honest, men and women are different.
yes.
And I think these are the differences that actually make, I think these differences like bring different perspectives and to these same companies. So I think for a woman, right, you shouldn't judge a woman the same way you judge a man.
Okay.
Let me get deeper.
All right.
Right.
I'll let you unpack that.
Let me unpack that, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like what I've seen about most women who are in positions of power, they've got this iron fist. Like you have to be like a Margaret Thatcher kind of woman. You have to be tough.
I'm a big fan of
You
Margaret
have to,
Thatcher.
you have to almost be like your male counterparts. You can't be that feminine, soft. You know, you can't be really a woman and get to those places. They want you to be like a man, if that makes sense.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah. So even if you look at these women, they're tough. They're no nonsense. Like this is how they get to those positions of power. Because if you don't do that as a woman, if you don't put on that thick skin, people are gonna walk all over you, right?
Okay.
So I feel like that's why you're saying when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, allow us as women to come as women and give us a seat at the table as women. Don't say transform into a man and then only then we'll give you a seat at the table. And being a woman means I need to take those breaks.
Yep,
Yeah,
for sure.
being a woman means all those things need to happen. And as much as it's hyper competitive and all that, like we need to put provisions and allowances for those things in place. Because if we don't, then we're just going to continue to have male-dominated companies.
So from a pragmatic standpoint, right? So if it was up to you, Shuai, or you, Jackie, you know, to change the rules of the game, right? To accommodate women better. You know, what solutions? You know, I suspect you guys have applied your mind to these things because they affect you, and you know, you've probably had some frustrations. So what you know? So if you was, what should boards be doing differently around their thinking in terms of recruitment and retention of women?
Okay. So I think the first thing is include us in the conversations. Because I feel like a lot of corporate decisions are made at the bar, right? Right. On the bar.
That's a good place to make decisions.
On the golf course, right?
Yeah.
Right. And the times that these conversations are made, this is not during work hours, right? So
Yeah.
we're together in the boardroom. We think we've discussed the topic. We think we've closed it, right?
Yeah.
When people go out, right, where women probably have gone out and they're with their families and they're doing things that normal women do, right?
Yeah.
Then the decision is made. Then you come, you're like, when did things change? I thought we were on the same page, right? You know, things like that. I think firstly, let's not bucket women and say, okay, maybe for women they can only get this far. With this conversation, we're going to take it to the bar, where women are not present.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I'll change. That.
But you guys seem to fit in fast,
you see,
quite well. That shouldn't be a challenge for you guys.
No, but you know, like I'm not at a senior level yet in my organization.
Yeah.
And back when I was training in the firm, whether you drink or not is actually a thing that it can be used against you. Like, look at her. Like, you can say you're drinking your whiskey, you're drinking your whatever, and people can still take you seriously. But even if you're a woman who's drinking, a woman who's going to the bar, already they're judging you. Like, what is she doing with those men? Because the thing is, when you look at that, the ratio of men to women who will be in the bar, already people are bucketing you in another. You're being placed in another
so there's
bucket.
this judgment, which is unfair.
You're already being judged. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know. So either way, like.
But
people still look at you
so
some type
that's
of
like
way.
a cultural thing because I think you know, Yeah, I think there's a generation that has that perspective and feels strongly about it. So if they see you in a bar, or and God forbid you're having a beer,
Not in Zim.
they'll judge you. But there's a whole. But I think that's that generation is much older than us, and they're on their way out. And I think my generation for sure is much more liberal, is much more progressive, is much more open-minded, much less judgmental.
I would beg to differ because these conversations we have in the office with guys your age and their views on women and drinking and what a wife shouldn't be in the bar, you should be at home, you can't go out at night, it's still there. Like
Okay.
For me, I think the change I would want is the mindset of men. I think that's where, how we are free from, what do you call that? Sorry, I'm losing the word. We're a colony. We're still sort of, our minds are still. I want to use that as an
Decolonizing
example.
the mind.
We exactly.
Yeah.
So I think for men, you're the older generation.
Yeah.
They had that view. They passed it on. The way they acted in their homes, the way you guys grew up. So you seeing your dads act a certain way or have all these views. It's in you guys, and I don't think it's out yet because the conversations I have with the guys in the office, they're still very prejudiced against all this
They still have these
women and what
all
you
this
can't
whole-
be
yeah, yeah.
certain
Well, so it's
spaces.
important that we're having this
You can't
conversation
be-
and we hopefully are enlightening them
Yeah.
and making them see things a little bit differently because the world has changed.
Yeah, it has. It
And
has.
it's continuing to change, and there is really no place for that kind of thinking anyway, because you miss out on a lot of talent. I mean, half the world's population is women, and so you don't really want to. If you're running a business for profit, why would you? Why would you limit your access to half the talent in the world?
Right.
Like that's just dumb. Right? So I think it's important that we have this conversation and we kind of, to the extent that we can, extinguish this old way of seeing things. Because it's perfectly okay for you guys to be here having a mojito and a colorful pink in a bar, talking business, and it's normal now. It's 2024, and I think the guys who are out in the wild, in Zim, running 1950s or 1960s software, need to upgrade to
They need to.
2024 thinking. Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about diversity and inclusion, I think inclusion, we still need to report on these stats. I think that's the only way we'll realize that something needs to be done. So I think if we keep tracking these things, I think let's continue tracking it and sort of have a desired state to say, okay, right now we've got 10% representation or we've got 50%, like 20%. This is our desired state. And then start working towards that. I think that's something that we can actively do. And we are by no means saying that just hire a woman for the sake of hiring a woman. Like, as long as she's a woman, put her in a position, like, hire capable women. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And make sure you keep working
So
towards those things.
I think the idea or the aspiration behind DEI is noble, right? You want people who are previously disadvantaged to thrive, to rise up, and you want to open up the world of opportunity to them. But I think that the place where you want to open the door is not at the university admission or at the corporate interview. It's when they are toddlers, right? It's exposing them and inculcating in them values like hard work and integrity and the sort of things that will later on in life serve them well and allow them to actually get to these places we want them to get to on merit, not because you're a woman or because you're black or because you're and that's my biggest gripe with the DEI movement is it wants to solve the problem at a very high level where you're saying, oh, this board is 80% males, 20% females. They should get, okay, fine, I understand the aspiration and it makes perfect sense to me, but the problem is not in the nomination committee of the board. The problem is in the education system and how many MBAs who are women it's churning out. How many CAs who are women it's churning out, right? Because the nomination committee of the board is dealing with who's available. right, with a relevant education, qualifications, and experience, right? And if it's 80% men, then that's that's the universe they have to work with, right? But if you fix the problem in terms of the pipeline, then and the pipeline is producing 50% qualified, educated, experienced women, then the board is going to be 50-50 or whatever, you know, ratio we think is ideal. So we and I think that's, you know, that's my take, that the conversation is happening at the wrong level. It's about the pipeline. It's not about, you know, if you look at the board and say, well, it's 80% men, there's a problem there. No, that's not where the problem is. The problem is with the pipeline. But, you know.
But I think I tend to disagree with you on the fact that you're saying that that's what's available, the 80-20, like that the 80% men who are available.
Yeah.
I think like right now in the CA profession, like the stats that we heard during the AGM, it's now 50-50 in terms of qualified CAs.
So CAs in the wild in Zimbabwe right now, it's 50-50?
No, like of the ones that are qualifying now. Like
Yeah.
right now, we've got 1/3.
So the guys who are graduating literally?
Yeah,
Okay,
the ones that
yeah.
are graduating now, it's 50-50. I think right now, as it stands, is 1/3 female, 2/3 male.
Okay.
From the stats that are there. But what happens is with things like boards and all those things, right? Like I said, it goes back to those conversations. If Rufaro is the one who's deciding, he's going to think, oh, my mates, oh, I know so and so and so and so from school. So from already we're disadvantaged because the people that are making the decisions, if they are not, if they don't have the right mindset, then obviously they're not going to make the right decision. So I disagree that the pool that's there is representative.
But if you look at the average board in Zimbabwe, for example, at a very high corporate level, right? What's the average age of a board member in a public listed entity, right? These guys are in their 50s,
50s,
right?
60s, yeah,
So
sure.
if you're looking for a cohort in that demographic, what percentage of your candidates are male? What percentage? Like, so fast forward, you know, now it's a third, as you've alluded to, right? So maybe 20 years from now, you know, you should have at least a third.
20 years.
Because that's when these
That's when
guys
they're
who've qualified
26.
are going to be sitting on the boards of public companies. They're not going to be sitting on the boards of public companies next year or in 5 or 10 years. I mean, look, unless they're phenomenal, right? But the average qualified CA is going to be sitting on a public company's board in their 40s and 50s, right? Okay, the world is changing, so, you know, we're much more amenable to having younger people on board. So you have people in their 30s. I mean, our Deputy Minister of Finance is in his 30s. So yeah, so actually the change will happen faster. But as of right now, in terms of the cohort that's sitting on boards, you're looking at people in their 50s, you know, unfortunately. But yeah, okay. And so but how much of this glass ceiling do you, because I'm in markets, and you know, one of the things we always say is that perception is reality, right? So if people think that a company is a dog, right, notwithstanding you know what's actually happening on the ground, the share price will reflect that the company is a dog. And so when we think about it and imagine a glass ceiling, how much of that is just is perception? You know, that because people think there is a glass ceiling, that they can't soar as much as they'd like because there are all these challenges and hurdles. That perception then becomes reality.
Okay, that's
Should I take it?
yeah, I think you can take it.
So I think, like I said, for a woman, if you are hell-bent that, you know what, I'm going to do what it takes.
You're going to get after it. Yeah.
You're going to get after it. You can do it. I think so. That's where the perception comes in, that as women, we know what we need to do to get to a certain point. But we're saying, should we have to do all the things that you want us to do? I don't know if that makes sense. That we have examples right now of women in industry and women who are breaking those glass ceilings.
Yeah, for sure.
And what they've had to do, or the personal sacrifices they've had to make to get to that point. Because we always have this conversation that you can't have it all. You can't be the best mom, best wife, best employee. Like, it's a very difficult
You have to
thing
pick
to
and
balance.
choose.
You have to
Yeah.
pick and choose. So I think those who have chosen the part that, you know, I'm going to choose my career, they've made it. And I feel like if there's a woman who's capable, she's got all the right attributes, she shows that she can deliver, I feel like opportunities are there. And there are people who are taking on those opportunities. So part of it is perception, as you say.
But I think a smaller part is perception. This is real. The Zim in the culture around the society, you know, perception is just a smaller percentage, I think. It is real.
So we need to change the mindset.
We need to change the mindset of
do you
the
think
men around us.
So what is it? Because a lot of guys who are leaders in corporate Zimbabwe have exposure. They've worked outside the country. They know how things are working globally. They have global, world-class, you know, qualifications. So why? What's your best guess as to why we still have this regressive attitude?
I think it's like I was saying, how the guys, how it's embedded in their minds, the role of women in Africa. Yes, they've been to other countries, they've seen women doing different things, but they come back home. For them in Africa, women should only do certain things or they can't do certain things. So I think it's embedded from the way they've been brought up, what they've been exposed to. Yeah, so.
And but I grew up in that framework, and I have a completely different worldview from my dad. So you know, what do you think is holding all these other guys back?
So I think for me, how people behave in the diaspora or outside is different from how they behave back home. I think people always say, "I'm just UK." I've heard that statement a lot. Like when men cross the border, they can be doing dishes. Like gender roles are not really defined as they are. Bring those same men back home. Some of them might still stick to the ways that they've learned outside, but some of them, chances are, they're just going to go back to their old ways. They're like, now I'm in Zimbabwe, I'm in my territory, I'm in my turf. Now let's do the way things, let's do the things the way they're done here in Zimbabwe, the way they're supposed to be done. So I think there are different nuances in terms of the different geography. So yeah, there's a way that we do things here.
Okay, that's interesting. So the producer is jumping up and down. He wants us to wind up. So I'm going to give you the last word, Shwai.
Okay.
And you know, so if you could say one thing that could move the culture in a better direction in corporate Zimbabwe, you know, what would it be?
I think for me, I would have to speak to the women because, well, men, we have a long way to go with our men, but to the women, I think just break that ceiling, guys. Like, you've got it in you. Can be. I think there's a good balance. You can be a good mom, you can be a good wife, and be great in your career. The men are doing their great dads. Great career, you know, great husband, but you know, we could probably do the same if the men meet us in the middle. I'm sure we'll find a way. Break that ceiling, guys. There's nothing that can stop you.
And on that very positive, optimistic, encouraging note, I'm going to say cheers. And thank you for joining us.
Cheers.